Schizophrenia is a heterogeneous disease with many dimensions which affect the overall course of the illness as well as the overall response to treatment. And while we often focus on the so-called positive symptoms associated with schizophrenia, so delusions or hallucinations, it's also important to remember the other dimensions which can impact the often significant functional decline that we see with schizophrenia. And these include negative symptoms, cognitive symptoms, mood symptoms, disorganization, and even motor symptoms. And what we know about schizophrenia is that it's a progressive and recurring disease characterized by multiple relapses. And following a relapse, patients often fail to recover to the same level of original health, and this may lead to significant functional decline over time. So the so-called Lieberman curve, which we see here, can really help us to visualize the course of the disease that many patients with schizophrenia experience. And what we see is that clinical deterioration, as far as functioning and other symptoms, can really begin here about 5 to 10 years before the onset of the first episode of psychosis, so before the experience of a first episode. And what's quite important here after this first episode of psychosis is for both the short and long-term prognosis of the disease or for the patient, is that we are able to identify the disease quickly and we intervene. Because the longer duration between this first episode and intervention, the worse really the overall prognosis for the patient is. Because schizophrenia is a progressive and recurrent disease associated with a number of different relapses over the course of the disease, that's also depicted here where we see this drop in function with each subsequent relapse. And the reason why we see this functional decline depicted as going down even further with each subsequent relapse is really because the patient might not recover to the level or as quickly as they did in previous relapses, and they may also be affected by residual symptoms and overall disability. So we see this functional decline. In the residual phase of the disease, we often see that this illness-driven functionality tends to plateau. So it's important to understand that this first initial treatment and early intervention is very important for the overall health of the patient.